Welcome back to He's a Giant, talk about all things college football, all things Giants football. I'm your host, Sal. Back from a disaster a week ago. I won't get into the details with my co-host Monty. What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude? We had our own bye week while the Giants had theirs. Weren't able to get to you last week with the show, but we're back. Stuff to talk about. We'll get into, and then a fun episode where some of these wide receivers couldn't just leave it at 5.
No, I mean not in this class. It's a good class actually. It's pretty good talent in this. And I think given where the Giants are, like a lot of us assume that wide receiver will be high on their list of things to get in the draft, maybe day one. But if not, we have to dig into the day 2. Even that some of these guys are day 3, maybe. But the point is, there's a lot of talent in this class, and interestingly, it's a lot of talent that I think complements what the Giants already have on the roster pretty well. When you consider what is the roster going forward, I mean, we don't have Wandale under contract, but we have Malik, Nabers, and the whole offensive game plan, and the passing game will be revolved around him, presumably. So getting a guy who can either, I think, be more like work with him inside outside or be more of an outside threat is going to be paramount in terms of things that the Giants are going to want.
Yeah, agreed.
The class has a lot of that. A lot of guys who fit that mold.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of different molds, a lot of good wide receivers.
And I apologize for the audio today. I am a little under the weather. It is not COVID. It is not bird flu. And Monty apparently does have some sort of communicable disease from
I am also
China.
sick. I also have the man cold.
Yeah, it's brutal. For those who don't know, man cold is a life-threatening condition. One day we'll have a He's a Giant fundraiser to find the cure for man cold. For the cure, because as anybody who has had a man cold knows, it's like a dance with death, and women they don't understand it. All right, before we get into the wide receivers, we've been gone a couple of weeks, and we missed all the fun bye week stuff.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Joe Shane got up there, and he got questions, and he understood the question. That was the takeaway from it. He understood the question. He understood the question very well, apparently, and he didn't really answer many of them. A lot of canned stuff, but towards the end of his presser, we don't have to go to people have broken it down, but man, he got flustered, and I think Pat kind of broke him. Yeah. Good job, Pat. And it looks like he looked to me, bottom line to me is he looked like a man who did not feel very comfortable in his job security.
No, it was a big difference from last year, man. You remember sitting here last year, and it was very much like this guy is almost cocky. He's so confident, he's cocky in how he is here, and you did not see that with Joe Shane this time. You saw a guy who humbled and was really just kind of almost felt like pleading for his job. Saying like, I won't make the same mistake twice, even though he's made the same mistake many times on a few things. And a guy who's I'm not perfect. Nobody bats 1,000. Some really kind of desperate lines coming out of Joe Shane.
He sounded like the guy who was about to get broken up with by his girlfriend, and he's just like begging, to not get broken up with. It was kind of a sad thing to watch. Hold that thought. I'm going to sneeze, and I don't want to sneeze into the audio.
Hit that mute. But yeah, man, it's.
God damn it! I lost it. I hate that.
I was trying to filibuster for you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, yes, sorry. So anyway, his crap aside, Monty, tell me where we are as an organization. Let's go through some of the rumors and then what the stuff going around.
It's a very weird spot. There's a lot of talk out there that John's not doing well. We've known of this, we've heard about it, but the word is John is not doing well. There's a lot of whispers from all areas, and the question then is going to be, who takes over after that? I know Carl Banks, we spoke about this, has been advocating for Chris Mara and what he did when he was on the team, which was just be a scout. So I don't really know what he's arguing for there, but he's the mouthpiece for the Giants. So I think we know what he's arguing for there. And then there's the aspects of the Koch buying in. There's the aspect of, Steve Tisch and Chris Mara have not had the best relationship, and how all that's gonna play out, I don't know. I imagine they have some people helping out and some people in place who are working in the interim on sick. But as far as the future, if John passes, which hopefully, we all pray and hope he doesn't, is going to be an interesting, pivotal thing for this organization.
Yeah. I think, the noise is getting louder, right? You pay attention to different segments of Giants media, of Twitter, sports radio, and from all angles, you're beginning to hear people who sometimes like to give you preludes to something happening in clue. You're beginning to hear kind of a steady theme, and the theme seems to be that, unfortunately, John Mara's health is not doing great, and there is some sort of resolution coming in terms of who will potentially step in and run the organization because his health doesn't allow. And again, the Chris Mara name is the one that I think has been bandied about the most, and I kind of at this point expect it to be Chris Mara. And when you think about it,
at least in the interim, at the very least.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, because I want to discuss my conspiracy theory that I've discussed with you for months now. That I think Chris Mara in the interim makes a lot of sense, even though people don't love Chris Mara. He is a football guy, whether you like his football acumen or not. I don't know of anybody else in the organization that is a football guy that I would consider to be senior enough to run the entire operation that is the Giants. I think Tim McDonald is probably not there yet. He hasn't, as you mentioned, he hasn't served on the board. I don't think he's done any of the administrative things that you need to do to run a multi-billion-dollar company.
And Chris has been a right-hand man to John in a lot of these big decisions. He runs these coaching searches. He runs these GM searches, which doesn't necessarily make me feel great that this is going to be some good change for us. But it's the reality is that they trust him in those things.
I mean, he's probably a steady hand in this right now, right? I think he's someone who probably wants it, somebody who knows how to do it. And I think he's the most logical candidate. We know on the Tisch side, unless there are people who are in the Tisch family that are on the board, and we know there are at least 3 members of the Tisch family on the board, unless there's somebody in that group not named Steve Tisch who actually wants to run things, I don't know anybody else that could step up and actually be trusted to run this. And there have been all sorts of rumors circulating, things like, Susan McDonald, John Mara's sister, who is Tim McDonald's mother, some other members of the Mara family who people have not really seen or heard of. I just think it's improbable that anybody else steps in a complete run the organization capacity beyond Chris Mara.
Yeah, not inside the family.
No. Now, they could choose to let someone else from the family run the business side, bypass Chris Mara, and choose a president of football operations.
And that's what that definitely should push for.
I think that's what most fans want. But this is where, I think the rubber meets the road in terms of decision making. That is a long-term type decision, right? That's a structural change that implies that you're going down this pathway of separating family business from day-to-day football operations completely, or as complete as you can get. But presumably you're doing it for a long-term solution and a long run where the family's involved. Where my conspiracy theory kind of comes into this goes all the way back to the day that the Koch family was announced as the minority purchaser of 10% of the Giants. And for those who don't know the whole background story, earlier this year, excuse me, the NFL allowed all NFL teams to sell up to a 10% stake in their organization to private equity or single family type buyers for the purpose of cash flow. Just cash out your chips. This is a really valuable asset. And the teams that indicated that they were interested in doing that, with the Giants amongst them, they had buyers lined up. there were plenty of buyers for all of these companies, these teams that wanted a 10% stake. Most of these buyers were like conglomerates, right? It was like a group of investors who were cobbling together the money, getting financing, and they would bring a player with some strong reputation in the community with the team as the head. Eli Manning was heading a group, right? If we recall, that we're going to be able to come up with the 10%. And the Giants valuation was approximately $10 billion. So a $1 billion, some group of investors were trying to come up with. It doesn't matter what the group of investors do, right? For the purposes of the ownership, the Maras and the Tisches, you're going to get the check, right? When the deal is done, you're getting a $1 billion check. That's it. The other side can figure out how they want to finance it, how they break down the liabilities, how they structure their loans if they do finance it or if they write a check. But it makes no difference to the Maras or the Tisches, like how they get their $1 billion if the only reason to do it was to get the $1 billion. If all you wanted was the $1 billion, you could get it from anybody, right? All these groups are lining up to do it. They would just get the money, finance it, give it to you. And it's a good investment, right? Like an NFL team generally appreciates 7 to 10% per year. And it's an easy thing to finance if you're a group of, high power investors. So the Giants in their ownership in Tisch and Mara could have easily gotten that from anybody. They selected Julia Koch, which I thought if you remember from our conversations, our group chats, I've been suspicious of this from day one. And I said, why would you pick, of all the people in the world, why would you pick Julia Koch? For those who do not know, Julia Koch is the widow of famous former billionaire, libertarian, engineer, philanthropist, David Koch, a controversial political figure, but a brilliant person who was very wealthy. He died about, I think, 6 years ago, and he left her his fortune, and she is currently worth approximately $80 billion. 80, with 80.
The richest owner in the NFL.
She's the richest owner, probably in sports.
Yeah.
And at least in American sports. Maybe there's somebody else there. I don't know. But she and her sons also bought a 15% stake in the New Jersey Nets. And apparently her sons have interest in getting involved in sports ownership. So maybe it's just, we just want to buy a piece of the Giants because we're collecting trophies, right? We own part of this, part of that. But why did the Giants, why did the Maras and the Tisches agree to sell to her? I've always kind of grappled with that. And my theory was, you don't pick someone like her from that family, which has a history of corporate takeovers. That's what they do. They buy their way in, and they eventually buy out a company. Look, this has happened in the railroad industry. This has happened in a lot of things that they've gotten involved in. Why would you pick them knowing who they are, unless your intention was that you wanted access to her capital to purchase the whole thing at some point in the near to intermediate term? That was always my theory, right? Like you wanted to line up a potential buyer if you wanted to just sell your whole stake, the whole damn thing, kit and caboodle. You wanted her in the building, vetted by the NFL owners, and make it a lot easier for you to access her money to buy the whole team and get it to your family. To me, that was the only logical explanation for why she was selected as the 10% owner.
Yeah. And it's interesting timing with the fact that, not long after that, it was announced that John Mara was sick with cancer. And did they know that when they made the sale is kind of the question.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know, right? We're connecting the dots here a little bit. And there's a little bit of tinfoil hat stuff on my end here, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But, I really have always believed that ultimately the plan is for Julia Koch and her sons to own 100% of the Giants. I don't think the Tisch family is necessarily one that's beholden to the team. And we've discussed this before. The Maras, their only industry really is the Giants, which means that yes, it's their big asset, but at the same time, they don't have external cash flow coming to support them in major ways. It is Giants cash flow. There are something, I think, I want to say Wellington Mara had like, what do you have, 11 children or 13 children or something like that?
A lot.
And so there's this big Mara clan that owns that 50% stake, now 45% stake, because they sold 5% to Julia Koch. And there's a lot of people who have some ownership stake in the Giants. John Mara always ran this since since his father died in 2005, and Steve Tish's father died, a few months apart in 2005. These two men have owned the team and run it completely. Specifically, John Mara. We don't know if anybody else is going to want to deal with this, right? Like, it's a big investment, it's a big undertaking. I've talked about how I think cash flow is a part of that reason, right? That the way they operate in signing contracts and the way they manage their cap kind of indicates a cash flow strapped team relative to some other teams in the NFL. And the data proves it. They're like out of 32 teams, I think, in terms of cash flow expenditures over the last 5 years, I think the Giants rank something like 29th out of 32 in actual cash flow, like payments out to players, right? And so I just feel like where this is all leading is, if John's health can't hold up, maybe, just maybe, the family doesn't want to deal with all this, and they may want to hand this over and just sell it to the Kochs. So that's a long-winded way of saying my theory of this case has been, since I've heard Julia Koch involved, that the plan was eventually for her to buy out the Giants. I don't think it's coincidence that a lot of this happened when John Mara's illness apparently started. And now we're hearing that we don't really know who's running the ship completely without John Mara able to do it. It doesn't sound like a family that's like got everything straightened, to handle things in a succession plan. So while I think Chris Mara will probably run things in the interim.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, would it shock me if a year from now we're talking about the finalization of a complete sale of the Giants to the Kochs? No. And I kind of have a feeling that's where this is going.
Yeah, no, see, and kind of where I said, it makes sense that, if John Mara isn't able to go, that I think a lot of people assume that Chris Mara would be the person running the team. And I don't disagree with that. That's probably the case. That seems to be what like Carl Banks is alluding at and whatnot. But here's the thing, is where kind of this thing can get messy and how this type of thing could happen. I still, at the end of the day, I don't think the Maras are going to sell out of their stake. I could be wrong, but I think it's much more likely for the Tishes too. But, where it could get interesting for the Maras is, Chris Mara, I think, wants to run this team. I do think Chris Mara wants to run this team, but I don't think Steve Tisch wants to be partners with Chris Mara. And I think that is going to be an issue. If anybody listening doesn't know the backstory here, essentially the main point of contention for them started back in 2007 when essentially John Mara wanted to make Chris Mara the GM of the football team, and Steve Tisch pushed back and blocked it because he didn't want too many Maras in power. He didn't like the idea of an owner being GM. Thank God for Steve Tisch, but essentially that pissed Chris Mara off. Chris Mara skipped Jerry Reese's inductory press conference. He went and tried to get a GM job somewhere else. He was very upset. And from what I've heard about Chris Mara, he seems like somebody who holds a grudge. And I don't think that Steve Tisch and Chris Mara have a good relationship. I wouldn't imagine that they would. And I think that's going to be a problem. And then after that, where does it come to? You're going to put Tim McDonald in charge? I feel like Chris would be pissed to have somebody like that jump him. Does like Susan McDonald want to run this team, who's the second oldest? That would make a little bit more sense, but does she want to do that? There's a lot of moving parts here, and with a bad relationship between Steve Tisch and Chris Mara, if Steve Tisch puts his foot down, it could get really complicated.
Yeah. Anyway, I do feel like that's where things are headed. I feel very bad for John Mara, like all of this stuff is interesting conversation because as fans, we root for the team no matter who owns it, no matter, who's on it, honestly. But it does unfortunately sound like his health is not in the best place. So I truly mean this. I hope he finds a miraculous recovery. And if he doesn't, I wish him a lot of comfort and peace. And I really feel for the family. I really do. I think this is a very difficult thing to go through.
It's so fucking embarrassing and disgusting that this team, as much as I've had my issues with John Mara, that this is the type of season they put out, and potentially John Mara's last season alive as the Giants owner is so sad. I'm with you. I hope he recovers. I've heard from like 5 or 6 people basically along the lines of the same thing. I won't get into detail, but essentially it does not. I would be shocked if we see John Mara speak publicly again. I don't know how close he is or anything, but I don't think he's doing good enough to. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he recovers, but I think that's the reality of the situation.
Very sad. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's sort of our. I guess that's our breakdown of the last couple of weeks and where we think things are going. Interesting to see. There's a little bit to talk about very briefly about the head coaches. A little, some rumors quickly. I know people want to hear about, the greatest receiver out of North Dakota State in history, which we may or may not talk about. But quickly, the head coaching search for hearing names all over the place. The name that's getting a lot of traction the last couple of days, and it's beginning to piss me off only because I don't know where this is going, is Marcus Freeman, the head coach at Notre Dame. Notre Dame got left off the 12-man playoff roster, and they took their football and went home and said, "We're not playing in the bowl game." Wah. Sorry, Notre Dame fans, but it didn't look great that they didn't want to play in a bowl game. They were pissed. I don't know if that was a Marcus Freeman decision. That sounds like an AD decision, but whatever it is, now the rumors are that he's interested in the Giants. The Giants are interested in him. Maybe he's just using them to get a bigger extension from Notre Dame, or maybe it's legit. Mm-hmm. So let's talk. We should talk about Marcus Freeman because he's obviously a real candidate.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know anything. I'm just a fan, but it sounds to me, from what I'm hearing, it sounds legit, and I think it makes sense. I think Pat Leonard talked about it today. It's one thing I've been saying for a while is. The Tim McDonald connection, as soon as you heard, the name brought up, it's like, well, Tim McDonald worked for Notre Dame for 8 years. That makes a lot of sense. Pat Leonard talked about that today. But the other thing he brought up is that Marcus Freeman's son accepted a wrestling scholarship at Cornell. And is this a place he might want to move and relocate to, given that? He may have aspirations to be an NFL head coach. So it's interesting. We talked about Marcus Freeman a little bit in our head coach episode. I am not a fan of going after Marcus Freeman. Not that I think he's a bad coach. Not to say I don't think he could do a good job, but more that the college to NFL translation is very difficult, especially when you don't have NFL experience. And I think the biggest thing for that, without not having NFL experience, is who's going to be his coordinators, his coaching staff. Is it going to be all college guys, or is he going to have the connections to build an NFL staff? And my worry is a lot of like these only college guys, it's going to be a primarily college staff, and that typically doesn't work. What's your thoughts, Sal?
Yeah, that's my concern with him. Like, my concern is he's never done anything in the NFL. Like, nothing. He was a fifth-round draft pick. Yeah, he was a fifth-round draft pick out of Ohio State. He was a practice squad guy, bounced around on 3 teams the 1 year he was in the NFL, and that was it. And then within a year, he left the NFL after that and was back to being a graduate assistant at Ohio State a year later. And to his credit, he's worked his way up, from Ohio State to, I think, I forgot where he went, like Purdue. He went somewhere else, then Purdue, then in Cincinnati, linebacker coach, DC, worked his way to Notre Dame, DC, head coach at Notre Dame. He's been there for years, has done a really great job. And he's definitely like one of the most exciting up-and-coming young coaches there is. And he's a great coach. Like, I think he's done wonders with the Notre Dame program. I have no doubt about his ability as a coach. It's just that he has 0 NFL experience in any capacity. And that gives me some hesitation only because, like you mentioned, staff. Like, who's his staff? Who is he calling to be his coordinator? Who's he calling to be, the people he leans on in the NFL? Can he deal with NFL players? These are all valid questions. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be an exciting hire. Like there's a part of me that's like really intrigued by it. I'm like, all right. I mean, I'll put it this way. I'm way more intrigued by a hire like Marcus Freeman than some of the retread names that we've heard out there, just because of the excitement factor of something new and maybe innovative thinking from the college ranks.
Yeah, way more a guy like Matt Nagy or Arthur Smith.
Right, exactly. So I'm not opposed to it. I just feel like there's a big unknown, right? And he has to answer those questions like that in an interview process. He has to be able to come and say, just like everybody else, here's what I would do with your roster. Here are the details of how I'd run your program. But the people I will delegate to help me run the program, these are my coordinators.
Yeah,
and he's got to bring that information to you.
Yeah. And that's the part of this that scares me. I could talk myself into Marcus Freeman. I really could. If we hired him, I'll probably get excited about it. But where the excitement either goes up or crashes is what I see him choose as his coordinators.
No, I agree.
Jabri brought up a good point in the chat. Something you and I talked about earlier, Sal, is like, maybe recommend guys for him to bring in. And although I do prefer that than to him just bringing a college staff, I don't love the idea of the Maras choosing a coaching staff for a head coach. That's not my preferred scenario.
No, but at the same time, like maybe he's the kind of guy who maybe what we're looking at as a potential weakness is a strength, right? Like he's maybe like a wide open palette in terms of the type of coordinators he would bring in. So he's not locked into certain relationships and guys. He might be the kind of person who says, I have a vision for the overall program, but I'm open-minded to interviewing different head coaching. The coordinator candidates. And then, of course, ownership will make recommendations and guys they like. But what if he says on offense, here's my vision, and it's built around Jaxson Dart and this type of game. So I'm going to find an OC who can do that. And on defense, I want a guy who's proven, who can do this well. And Jim Schwartz, like this guy Bree just mentioned, we talk about him a lot. He'd be great. There are guys who are going to lose their job. And I mentioned that the Cleveland staff is going to lose people when they fire everybody at the end of the year, and good people are on that staff. And Schwartz is a guy I would think about. It's possible that he's open-minded. It's just a big question. That's all I have. I don't know. I think with the other people, you kind of have an idea of who they probably would tap into. With him, I have no idea.
I agree. I think that's a difference. If he's just bringing in the guys Maras wants, I don't like that. If he's just bringing in college guys, I don't like that. If he goes, I don't have enough connections here in the NFL, so I am going to interview every candidate that interests me and be open to a bunch of different NFL coaches and interview them, take the time and find his guys, I would love that. And I'd be much more excited about him. If he goes, well, I need guys who have NFL experience, but I also want connections. So I'm just going to hire Tommy Reese and maybe a recently fired Al Golden who had a terrible first stop in Cincinnati. Be like, well, I know these guys and, they've been coordinators in the league, instead of just getting the best guys. That would be my concern.
Finally got that fucking sneeze out. Thank God. Whew. I was waiting for that. All right. No, I agree with you. But look, I've kind of vacillated on this issue since we talked about it earlier, and where I've kind of landed is I'm way more interested and intrigued by him than I am concerned about it. I just need more information. I like the idea of it. I just need more. I need to know how he would approach it. That's all.
Yeah. My main thing is I'm nervous the Maras aren't going to go into this valuing enough the type of NFL staff he's bringing to them. I could be totally wrong on that, but that's my concern, because if I was interviewing him, that would be a big thing for me, is who's your staff going to be? How are you going to approach this? And if he answered those questions and, I felt he could, I'd be much more interested in Marcus Freeman, even though, the history of college coaches has not been great. But that's a big reason why the history.
Let me throw a wild card name out there for a defensive coordinator not named Al Golden, who's probably going to hit the market. Wink Martindale.
I said that one. College guy, loved by the Giants, and NFL guy. It's interesting.
Michigan is going through a little bit of turbulence today.
Yeah.
A lot of noise going. Obviously, I don't want to go into the Sharon Moore thing. It's crazy. But I've heard from people that I trust that their target is Kalen DeBoer. That would, I guess that would mean that Wink would potentially be, I don't know. He might be out there, and Chris Mara likes Wink. So anyway, I think Freeman is an interesting guy to talk about, and we'll get into more. You want to get into this episode?
Yeah, let's just jump into it now.
All right, because you guys are all here to talk about our day 2 wide receivers, maybe day 3. And I'll tell you what, specifically for Jabri, the guy you want us to talk about is not on this 5-man list. But
there's no film yet, Jabri.
There's no film, and that's the only reason why. Otherwise, he would have been on the list. We didn't have film on him. But we will do, as soon as we will request film on him just for you. And as soon as we get it, we will do a special episode on the best receiver in the draft. Yeah. We're not going to do
the best Lance.
Yeah, the best Lance, the only real Lance out of North Dakota. Yes, he's a fraud podcast brought to you by Celsius. All right, let's go into the next top 5. Last week, 2 weeks ago when we did this episode, we talked, or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, I can't remember. We went through our top 5. It was guys like Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, Chris Bell, Denzel Boston. Not in that order exactly. So we're going to do through the next 5. And I think most of you guys know these guys. I think there might be one dude in here that we're going to go over that is not talked about enough, but you should know who he is by now. But why don't you kick us off with the first dude? Now I'll go through the second and we'll go from there.
Sure. So big name that I think a lot of people know, KC Concepcion from Texas A&M. 5'11", 190. So kind of a smaller guy. I believe that was it, right? Yeah, 5'11", 190. He previously was at NC State, transferred to Texas A&M. I was watching him, and I definitely was intrigued by this guy. He's a good football player. I'll get into some of my notes here. I said he manipulates leverage through footwork at the line of scrimmage in both deceptive and precise. He's a guy who can really create leverage with his footwork, but he's not dancing around there at the line. He very much does his steps quickly and then gets his leverage and takes off. That's something I liked about him watching him. I said he displays strong ball tracking skills, allowing him to make plays on less than perfect throws. There's a lot of less than perfect throws coming to KC Concepcion, and he was very good at whether it's underthrown, kind of pulling up and making a play for it, or catching it outside of his frame. I thought he did a really good job at that. Compete aggressively at the catch point. He would elevate for the high point the football. Shows the ability to sustain and build speed while adjusting his route path. He's a guy, very smooth in his routes, and kind of as he cuts through, he could really start to take off. He possesses enough speed to stack and overtake cornerbacks. Definitely think he had some deep speed to show there. He can create separation with deceptive fakes and body manipulation before the break. He could really kind of like break some cornerbacks' ankles at times and completely leave them in his dust. There's definitely examples of that. Leverages arm length and subtle engagement to gain separation and tight coverage. He's definitely good at that. Not called OPI. He uses his arms just enough to kind of get some leverage. I noticed that. He never really gets called for it, but he's good at doing it. Displays quickness and agility in open space after the catch. Aggressive and scrappy, consistently competing at a high level, and plucks passes away from his body with precision and control. Definitely a true hands catcher. The negatives I had on him. I said he's a good but not elite change of direction ability. He can decelerate quickly, but he's not like a stop on the dime kind of guy. But it's good. It's just not elite. Size and strength occasionally prevents sustained blocks. You can definitely, despite how kind of feisty and scrappy he is, he can kind of get messed up from his size and blocks. His size also create matchup challenges versus bigger and stronger defenders, and limited ability to hold leverage in traffic. Functional strength improvement would hopefully enhance that. But that's what I had on him. What do you have on him, Sal?
I think you got most of it. I mean, in summary, little smaller stature guy, plays a lot on the outside at A&M, but I don't know if he can play on the outside in the NFL. That's one of the concerns I had watching him. There are guys who are not tall, but can play on the outside because their frame is sturdy, and he doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. I think he's a little bit more slight of frame right now. Now he could put on mass, but I see him more as like a slot receiver in the NFL, to be totally honest. I mean, he can play both, but I think he's going to be a guy who works primarily out of the slot. I do think the size strength stuff is going to be a limitation in the NFL. I do believe that. I think that, if you look at his production and how much of it comes in contested catches, which he's really outstanding at, is that something that he can keep up at that level in the NFL where the corners are draped on you and much more physical?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's just a question, like, can he keep up what he's doing in college? Those are the concerns. But the stuff he does well, you talked about it, and I think it all translates. He's an outstanding route runner. He's a technician, right? He's got the technical skills of a receiver down. He's well coached, great at the snap, runs precise routes, good at the break point, at the stem. Changes speeds well, catches almost everything that comes his way. In terms of being there for ball tracking, he does have a tendency to have some concentration drops. I've noticed, and that's got to be cleaned up a little bit. But for the most part, I think this is a pretty damn good receiver. I view him sort of as like a high end in the NFL. I think he's kind of a higher end slot wide receiver 3, maybe a borderline wide receiver 2. I did not think. I mean, he graded out better than I'm saying, but I'm a little wary of the size and the frame to be more than that, and that's kind of the bottom line for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think he's clearly a day 2 guy. I would not touch him day 1, but to me, he's probably more of a 3rd round guy for me than a 2nd round. But I could easily see him getting taken 2nd round. He probably will get taken 2nd round.
I think he's going to get taken 2nd because he's a productive player, and I think that a lot of the stuff he does well translates, right? Like, I don't think he will be an unproductive NFL player. Is he going to be a dynamic big player in the NFL? I don't know. I think he's going to be more of much more of like a route running possession type guy. Who's a little smaller, and I mean, he does have speed. I like that about him, but I just don't know if he can hold up on the outside in the NFL. Yeah, I agree. He's very much a 49er. He's like he is a prototypical Shanahan wide receiver, right? He's made in the mold of these guys.
And if you look at his numbers here, all of it looks pretty impressive. 2.71 yards per route run, looks really good. He does have a low drop or high drop rate, 9.5%. That's not ideal. 61.5 contested catch rate and 77.8 grade versus man coverage. So all those, except for the drop rate, are really high on and percentiles.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, let's grade him out. Because he graded out really well for us. So I'm being a little bit critical, and I actually graded him high. But I'm just talking about the negatives and how I think he projects the NFL. But agility, we both gave him a 4. Body control, we have identical grades. I think we both gave him a 3. Hands, we both gave him a 3. I would, it was just concentration drops that bothered me. Play strength, we both gave him a 2. I don't think he's a strong receiver. Focus ball tracking is outstanding. 4. Long speed is very good for both of us. Route running 4, release package 4, as you mentioned. I gave him a little bit more in the yak. I gave him a 4. You gave him a 3.
He's very capable of it. I just don't think he's a plus.
Yeah, I'm projecting a little bit because I think he has the technical ability to be a better yak guy. Like you mentioned, QB play does actually hurt his production, right? So could I see a more precise? I think Dart's a pretty accurate quarterback. So I think. If you project him out for the Giants, could he be a very good player with the Giants? Yeah. But I do think, the point made by Jabri in the chat, and I've heard this from others, he's a precision timing offense type player, I think, in the NFL. And I think this is where like the Shanahan guys, like he's perfect for that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what we're going to be next year, so I don't know what to say, but would he be even though he's grading out high, would he be my primary target out of the guys we're going over today? Honestly, no.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, he doesn't have the upside some other guys are talking about, but he's probably the best player today.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to a guy I'm going to go over, and Monty was kind enough to let me do this one because I really like this guy, and I think he graded out. I think our next 2 graded out almost equally.
Yeah, next to you were a little higher on this guy, and I think we were equal on the next guy.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, they're going to both grade out kind of about the same no matter what. So,
Yep.
the next guy we have, and give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up all his metrics. If you give me a moment, because I want to go over them as we talk. Is Elijah Sarratt from Indiana, 6'2", 213 pounds. Sarratt is, for those who have not been watching, a key component of that Indiana offense that has won the Big Ten. Congratulations to them. And is the number one team in the country going into the college football playoff. Sarratt was a 3-star recruit who was at JMU with Curt Cignetti and followed him to Indiana, and he's gotten consistently better every year. He's a big kid. He's, like I said, 6'3", 200 and something. He's a big, strong kid, but he's actually very well coached, much like all of Cignetti's players. A very sound technician as a wide receiver, good technique at this. For example, at the snap, he has a wide variety of release packages. He's a guy that when he runs his routes, he's quite nuanced. I was actually really impressed by how he runs his routes. He bends them just right. He finds a way to create just about a little bit of space for throwing windows for Fernando Mendoza. He's very good at positioning his body and using his frame to get a throwing window for his quarterback. And I think he and Mendoza have a really good rapport there. Very good hands catcher, reliable, technically sound when the ball's coming his way, tracks the ball very well. He's good on contested catches, good in tight coverage. And he's actually able to be a little bit explosive with the football. When he gets a little bit of room, you see him use his stride length and take off. I see in some of your notes, not very twitchy. I would agree. This is not the guy you get for the change of direction, twitchy kind of stuff. But I think he does it adequately. I think he knows how to use leverage and angles to get a little bit of running room for himself.
He's very smooth.
He is smooth. And I think he knows how to use his body and positioning and leverage to his advantage. I mean, there are some negatives here, obviously. Like, I don't think he's a speed guy. I don't think you expect him to burn past guys. And he's not somebody you see stacking DBs on the outside for vertical routes, right? That he doesn't do a lot of that. If he's going to win on the vertical route, he just wants a one-on-one matchup. He'll position himself well, and you got to trust him, right, to go up and get the ball. And he does that very well. Maybe he could add a little bit more diversity to his route tree. I think a lot of his stuff is on the outside. I think he could benefit from a little bit more coaching. In terms of route tree diversity, but that's, again, depends on how you use him. And I don't think, he's a big yak guy. He's not a guy that's going to take the ball and run away from people all the time. But the bottom line to me is this is a really good, like, number 2 outside type receiver. He's a big kid, very technically sound, well coached overall, knows how to use leverage, knows his strengths. He knows that his body, his frame, his route running ability are all strengths. He uses them to his advantage and has been a consistently productive player. He's not going to be like a superstar, but he is so consistently productive that it's undeniable when you look at how he produced at JMU and how he's doing it at Indiana. I think this is one of those guys, like, if you decide to take him on day 2, you can, like, is he an upgrade over Darius Slayton is my question, right? And I would say immediately yes, right? Immediately yes. And I think that's how I view him, is like, he can be your outside receiver who's immediately a pretty substantial upgrade long-term over a guy like Slayton. I'd be comfortable taking him in that role. What are your thoughts on him?
No, I mean, I'd agree with that. He does, he doesn't have the home run ability that Slayton has, but he's better in basically all other ways.
I like the comp. I love the comp that Alex just put in the chat. A guy like Jacoby Myers. Yeah,
I do like that.
Very, Alex, that's a good one. He's very much like a Jacoby Myers type player.
Yeah, and I like to what that is. I don't see a super high upside player, but if you get a Jacoby Myers, that you're very happy with that. Yeah, I really liked him, man. I didn't love him, but I really liked him. We talked about his route tree not being diverse. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. Like, it's not in the ways that we've talked about with like a guy like Chris Bell, or like we talked about with like Ole Miss guys or Tennessee guys. It's more like it's slants, ins, and outs. Like, he does have, like, the intermediate stuff he runs. He's really good at the intermediate stuff. It's just not the full route tree. It's kind of interesting. They really use him in the intermediate area consistently, and he's fantastic at it. He's really good at consistently finding soft spots and zone in that area. You mentioned it. He's just really good at positioning himself to shield himself off from the defender, and he just has these really good hands to pluck the ball away, even when the coverage is super tight. He can really contort and adjust his frame to catch balls outside of it. One thing I mentioned here is he used delayed hand placement and body positioning to gauge defenders at optimal moment. You would kind of see him like waiting for the ball. The defender doesn't really know where it is, and all of a sudden he would like take a step last second, shoot his hands out, and be there for the ball. And the defender has his head to it, so doesn't really know it's coming. He waits just long enough to do it, which is very savvy of a guy like this. The other thing I mentioned too was he has these really exaggerated strides that he does off the line of scrimmage. He's kind of like almost like a high step, kind of like a long stride. And he uses this to tempo his routes. And you can see defenders kind of struggle, not knowing kind of like when he's going to like take off and what speed he's going to come out of that. Again, it's just him kind of showing different nuance that he's found in the position to win. Just a really solid football player, I would say.
Yep. I agree. I think that's exactly. I think you watch him and you just see solid. One thing I loved about him, though, and this is what I told you, like if you really want to see some of his best tape, go watch the Oregon game. I mean, because the Oregon game was, I think, Indiana's first big test, right? That was their first big test. Like, are you for real as a team? And they have really, really good, like future NFL caliber type corners. And a DB room on that Oregon team, and he torched them. Like he torched them with technical ability. If you watch like the route running, the start stop, the creating separation with his like comeback routes, all the stuff we just talked about, right? Just the ability to use leverage. Like they couldn't stop him, and it wasn't because he was burning them or anything, but it was just like it was a technical clinic that he put on. And that's what I loved about him. I saw that, that's one of those things like I think about it, right? When you see a college kid do stuff like that, you can't unsee it. You know it's there. And I think there are some high-end receivers that I can see him mimicking. I'm not going to name them, but there are guys who are big and not ultra fast, but who are just really good technicians and who use their frame and their size and route running to get an advantage. And they got, they got to find the right quarterback. They need a quarterback that's good at timing and ball placement. But if you have that, these guys can be ultra productive at the NFL. And I actually think we have one of those guys. Dart is proving to be a guy who places the ball really well, has very good timing with his receivers. And I feel like this is the kind of guy who complements Malik really well. I love him as a fit for the Giants.
Yeah, no, I would be very happy with him. Some of the stats here for people who are listening, 2.56 yards per route run. Very, very good number. 5.6% drop rate, middle of the road, 36.4 contested catch rate. It is on the lower side there, but an 86.1 PFF grade versus man coverage. That is one of the highest percentiles. And I think that goes to a lot of what we talked about with between like his route running and his leverage and all that.
Sorry, I'm always delayed because I'm trying to fight off a sneeze.
You're fine.
I'm struggling here.
All right. So
man cold. Remember, we're gonna have you guys have to tell us a date you want the special He's a Giant episode to raise money to find a cure for man cold.
He's a Giant telethon.
We're gonna telethon like Jerry Lewis. Yeah. All right, let's go through the grading of Elijah Sarratt. I was a little higher than you. I was actually quite a bit higher than you, but that's fine. Agility, we both gave him a 4. Really agile athlete. Body control, we both gave him a 4. I could have given him a 5 here. He's really good at that. Hands, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. I get the ball out of the air. Why'd you give him a 3 here?
He has some drop issues at times. He's very good hands, but he's good and he does have natural hands, but I didn't think it was next level.
Here's where I really disagree with you. I gave him a 3 on play strength, and I actually thought about going higher, and you gave him a 2. Why'd you give him a 2 on play strength?
I just didn't think he was a very physical player when I watched him. I thought that was something that he might struggle with at the end of at the next level. I thought, that's something that he could struggle with at times after the catch. I thought that he could get bullied around at times by bigger corners, but I didn't see a very physical player.
It's a very physical tackler, he's a sound tackler, I thought. But Okay, we disagree there. That's fine. Ball tracking and focus, we both gave him a 4. He's very good at that. Long speed, we gave him a 3. He's not going to stack and shed guys and burn them. Route running, we both gave him a 3. I could have gone higher here too, but I think he's technically perfectly good score. Release package at 3. Yak at 3. I think we're both kind of in agreement. So, like, he's a really solid receiver. Overall grades out like a 3.33, so like a slightly above average NFL receiver. But again, I just feel like it's about it's for him, it's fit, right? What offense does he fit? And I do think what we're running and who we already have, he's actually an outstanding type fit.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. You want to do number 3 here?
Yeah, let's get into the next guy. So the next guy is I know a big name for a lot of people because he is a freak athlete. And I think a lot of people listening probably already know who I'm talking about. And that's Jacoby Lane from USC. Jacoby Lane clocks in at 6'4", 200 pounds. Reportedly has a 48-inch vertical jump. Absolutely insane numbers if that's true, especially at his size. He has I don't have it on me, but I know he has a crazy wingspan. Maybe somebody in the chat could drop it, but I know his wingspan is insane. But he was a fun player to watch, man. There's a lot to like about him. He's a little bit more nuanced of a player than I necessarily expected, based on kind of his production and the athletic ability he has. So this is what I had on it. I said he displays savvy ability and zone recognition and can capitalize on quarterback's movement. He's a very much a guy who will when a quarterback is trying to buy time, he will at times just take off downfield for him and give him a deep target, or he'll come back to him. He tries to get creative for his quarterback and make a play when he gets outside of the pocket, which is something I'm looking for with a guy like Jaxson Dart, but also just a guy in general who is really, really good at zone recognition. And Alex, if he does jump 48 inches, that would be a combine record. He uses controlled tempo to manipulate coverage and create separation. I mentioned finds soft spots in zone coverage, settles, and presents a reliable target. He gives the chest, keeps the defender behind him, and really just kind of gives a lane for the quarterback to throw into. He's a big-bodied receiver who can hold blocks and open lanes for his teammates. Capable of sudden cuts and route adjustments, uncommon for a wide receiver of his stature. For a guy really big, he's a pretty sudden guy. Large frame and leaping ability make him consistent threat and jump balls. He's a guy, you put him into the red zone, he can just absolutely go up for a football. He uses great body positioning and hand placement and timing, just mixed with that jump ball ability that really makes him dangerous in those situations. Let's see. He possesses enough deep speed to stack and overtake cornerbacks. Effectively boxes out D-backs while securing a catchable window for throws. On some of the negative side, he requires development in positioning and mechanics to sustain blocks consistently. Although he's a very big body who can kind of physically dominate these corners, he just needs to improve his technique to really be the high-end blocker that I think he could be. He's not a versatile route runner. Most of his productions comes from a handful of routes. His footwork and hand usage at the line are basic, kind of limiting his early separation opportunities. I think that's a place he can improve. In general, like his release techniques require improvement. Stronger press cover can disrupt his intended route stems. But overall, a really, really impressive high-end player. Somebody mentioned he's a basketball player. I do have a comp for him that I mentioned you earlier, but I will let you give your thoughts on Jacoby Lane first.
Monty's comp is a freaking whopper, but it's actually legit. So, bottom line to me is, I've really Jacoby Lane is an intriguing prospect to watch because I think that some of his the limitations on tape, some of that is probably experience and coaching and just time. It's certainly not physical. He's a physical specimen. Some of it I really thought was utilization in the USC offense because, quite frankly, he is the complement to their top receiver, who is arguably the best receiver in this class. Right? Not going to be the first one taken, but Makai Lemon is a demon, and the offense was really centered around getting him the football in the passing game. And I think Lane played second fiddle to that. And I think some of his utilization and some of the limited route tree, like you look at some of the concepts they run. I mean, he's running a lot of concepts that are meant to draw safeties away to give Makai Lemon some room. And you wonder how much of that is just, this is how we're going to run our offense versus ability. What I liked about him, though, like you mentioned, like you would look at him physically and think, all right, this guy's he's just a vertical downfield speed demon, and he's a jump ball guy. And he does all that really well. But his ability to like find the soft spot in zone and be a quarterback's best friend was really remarkable to me. Like over and over again.
Yeah.
Whenever his quarterback was in trouble, it was Jacoby Lane time and time again coming back for the football and finding soft spots in zone and getting there and creating yak after that, which I thought was really impressive, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot
taking off downfield and giving him like a big, everybody's coming up. I'm going to get behind this defense.
Yeah. He's really he has instincts that are things that I don't think you can teach, right? Like that's just stuff that some guys have and some guys don't. You see it on tape, high effort, instinctive players who do that kind of stuff, right? When the play starts to break down a little, are they going to find that spot to help their quarterback? There's a guy we're going to go over who I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because he doesn't give two shits about that stuff. And you know who I'm talking about. So Lane, I think, does all the stuff that make for a productive player, and where he's intriguing for the Giants is while I think he needs some coaching up, he's young, he's athletic, he's freakishly strong and fast, but he already does some of the instinctive stuff well that I think complements Jaxson Dart very well, like you mentioned, right? Like he does the things that he's a big play guy down the field. Dart's looking down the field. He just comes back to the football and finds a throwing window for Jaxson, for, not for his quarterback now, but for Dart, presumably. He's a big upside swing. Like I kept thinking to myself, dude, that he's kind of a Kirkland Carnell Tate in play style, but with way more athletic upside, honestly. And if he could go back to school for a year and go now to the University of South Florida and work with Brian Hartline, I really wonder what kind of demon he would end up being. Really, like I'm not sure this is a guy who should declare right now. I'm serious. Like if I were him, I would want to get another year of development in, because I have a feel he has the potential to be like a first-round top 15 type wide receiver, in my opinion, if he goes back and gets a little bit better. If he comes out, I would swing on him because I think there's a lot of upside. But that's kind of my take on him.
Yeah, I mean, he has a quarterback too, so I agree with you. If I told you 3 years from now Jacoby Lane was the best wide receiver from this class, would it surprise you?
Not at all.
Yeah,
he's got the most athletic of everybody we've reviewed. He and Jordan Tyson have the most athletic upside of anybody.
He's got a little bit of that like A.D. Mitchell, like where he can move he's not quite that like movement abilities, but he's got a little bit of that where he's way twitchier than he should be for a guy as tall as he is.
He's 6'4". He has 48 maybe inch, whatever it is. If he learns how to time his jumps a little bit better, like just little nuanced things, right, that I think come with experience, he's unstoppable on contested catches. I mean, the guy, like just on that alone, and he's twitchy and fast and explosive. If he learns to like harness it, he becomes well, why don't you give your comp? Because I think it's a legitimate one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the comp I'll use throughout the whole thing, because I really think this is who he could be, and that's Nico Collins from the Houston Texans. Nico Collins was a high borderline 5-star recruit. He's a 4-star recruit. A borderline 5-star was a freak coming to Michigan with really, really high expectations for him. He is a great athlete, and he never really quite lived up to it at Michigan. He had some good seasons, but was really more of what he could be than what he became. And I think that there's a little bit of that to Jacoby Lane, where he never quite lived up to what we hope he could be. But he's a guy who has that athleticism and that size where, he can move really well, where I think he could be I think that Nico Collins is a very good route runner for his size. And I think that's something that Jacoby Lane could have. And I could see him thrive in the right system like Nico Collins did. When he got in that Shanahan system, for example, he really took off. He kind of, became that like Andre Johnson role for it. And I think that could be Jacoby Lane. So I would definitely swing on a guy like this. It's not as safe as some of these other guys, but he could be your Brian Thomas across from Malik Nabers.
He could be his upside, like we're talking high upside now, right? He could be, and I think you mentioned this to me. He could be an AJ Green level receiver in the NFL.
I mentioned that one too. Yeah.
I think, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I mean, if you remember AJ Green at Georgia, this is going back a long time now. I'm old, but I mean, he was that kind of guy, right? He was that big athletic freak who was humongous, size wise, big hands, caught everything from a hands catching perspective. But there was some technical refinement that wasn't optimized. But you just bet on like the traits and the ability, and he was already pretty good. Yeah, I mean, could he be that guy? I like, that's the thing. If you swing on this guy now, you're swinging on that kind of upside, and I think I would take that. But even his floor, because I think the floor is what you get year one. The floor for me for this guy is basically a very, very good traditional X receiver on the outside, who I think Rad or somebody put in the chat complements Malik really well. He's that big receiver who can stretch the field, stack DBs, and at minimum be like that kind of like vertical threat. And if he develops a little bit more route running nuance, you're talking about a ridiculous receiver. So if he enters the draft and he's there somehow on day 2, which by the way, I don't know if he will be, I'll be honest. I think once this guy tests at the combine, Monty, like, he's the kind of guy guys take at the back end of round 1,
Mm-hmm.
But if he's there, and if the Giants don't go wide receiver in the first round and they're sitting there, what are we at, like wherever we are, pick 34, 35, whatever. If you're sitting there and you want a receiver at that point and he's there, you're going to be hard pressed to take a bigger swing than a guy like him.
Yeah, he's not necessarily a run to the podium guy for me there. He's not like a true first-round prospect who fell, but he's a guy who I'd be very excited about the upside of that pick.
No, and I see the guys in the chat saying 4th round. I think that's where people project him now. I'm just saying I think this guy, when he tests, I have a feeling he is going to be a monster in the combine. And I think people are going to look at the tape and say there's a lot to work with here that's really good if he declares. I'm not sure he's declaring, but if he does, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a lot higher than people are saying.
And I don't think you can do this with your plan being getting Lane, with your plan getting a bunch of wide receivers, but you could trade down potentially from that 2nd round pick, and Lane could be a potential target on that back, and it's easier to take that type of risk, which is a great part about trading down when you move back and get more darts.
A.D. Mitchell went what, 52, right?
Yeah, he had character issues, but
I mean, that's kind of the range I think most likely he lands in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic about the upside here. I just think guys like him, when they test, they tend to surge. That's all. I think they're going to find their way to the 2nd round, most likely. Anyway, you want to grade him out?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Agility, 4s. Body control, 4s. Hands, 3. Play strength, 4s. Long speed, ball tracking, 3. Long speed, 4. We have the same grades across the board here, except route running. You gave him a 3. I gave no. We both gave him a 3 on route running.
Same across the board.
Release packages, we both gave him a 2. That's where he really needs work, and a yak ability at 3. So he grades that again like very similar to the last guy, but for different reasons. I think I think Sarratt is a higher floor prospect, but his upside is limited. Lane is a much more of an upside swing type prospect.
Agree. Yeah, I think I think I'd much rather take a swing. I mean, I don't want to kick a guy while he's down because I forgot as I was saying it. I'd much rather take a swing on a guy than Chris Bell. Granted, Chris Bell just tore his ACL, so that's really unfortunate for him. But even a healthy Chris Bell.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Jabri's got some good comments. It's hard to imagine him going that high in the draft because the tape doesn't support it. It's an upside swing. I'm kind of with you. I don't think we have to do that. I'm just saying that if he declares and he tests like I think he's going to test, I wouldn't be surprised if people are talking about him in the first half of round 2. And guys go high when they test like crazy.
And I mean, to be fair to Jabri's point, I mean, we'll see if this guy jumps 48 inches. If he jumps 48 inches, it changes everything. He also has a 6'8" wingspan, I looked, by the way. But to Jabri's point anyway, my comparison, Nico Collins, who also tested like incredibly. Third round, 89th overall. So, there is a range for him that he'll go day 2. But I don't think he falls to us around 4.
No, I don't think so either. All right. Who are we doing for here? Let me see.
To your favorite guy.
Yeah, this is my favorite receiver. Hold on, let me pull him up here. Newsflash, this is not my favorite receiver. Not at all. All right. Number 4 on our list for today that we felt we had to go over because he's got to be somebody we review is Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell. Physically imposing human being, 6'5", 200 pounds. Chris Brazzell is, and he looks every bit of it when you watch him at tape on Tennessee. He is another one of these guys who's a size athleticism freak. He has incredible agility for a guy his size. He can plant, change direction. He's twitchy. He's fast. He can stack DBs. He's a good vertical threat. He can be a real problem. He shows body control. He can adjust and contort his body in the air, use his ridiculous wingspan to go get football. He catches the ball with his hands well. He does use his play strength well, uses his frame and power on one-on-one situations. He also is a good blocker when he wants to block down the field. He's strong. He's stronger than everybody else out there. He will use leverage, speed, athleticism to create separation and to basically put DBs in a blender if he feels like it. And he's pretty good at locating the ball and high points it very well. He's not just your typical Tennessee wide receiver that's a vertical threat. I think he has a lot more to him in his game than guys we've seen in the past. I think this is a guy that actually runs routes well if he wants to. I'm going to keep saying that. And he has a more diverse route tree than traditional Tennessee wide receivers. Here is where I absolutely do not like this guy. I think you saw it too on tape. This guy is the lowest effort player I think I've seen in 3 years of watching wide receiver tape with you. If he knows the ball's not coming to him, I couldn't believe the number of snaps I saw, Monty, where he didn't move from the line of scrimmage on the snap. It was alarming, like how the ball would get snapped and you would watch him and he would just stop moving. And it's one thing, and his DB would stop. Like you just see 2 guys stop and the plays over here, they're over here not moving. But it hurt a lot because the backside safety would see Brazzell is not doing anything. And all of a sudden, you have an extra man, playing defense on the play side. It happened over and over and over again where if he knew he wasn't getting the football, he just didn't participate in the play. It happened so much. I was kind of shocked that like Josh Heupel didn't bench him because he was alarmingly bad. I mean, this guy showed no effort way too often. He flashes all the good stuff I talked about in spurts, but he disappears for huge segments of the game, right? Just doesn't, and not because he's getting locked up, just doesn't try, And again, while I think he has the ability to run routes, I don't think he's even like showing off his ability in running routes as well as he can. There's just like these to me are red flags, right? That I just can't get behind. But overall, you can't find a physically gifted receiver like him too often at his size, his speed, his agility, his ability to stack DBs and be a deep threat, high point the football. There's physical stuff that you got to like about him. And if you want to bring him in to be that guy and you want to take a swing on him and say, I can coach him up to not be lazy. Okay. But that's sort of my assessment of him. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned, and you watched him before me, and you mentioned to me that you saw that. And I was watching him, and I was like, yeah, there's like some backside stuff where he's definitely, kind of taking off. But I see that from guys. I wasn't overly worried. And then it was, as the game went on, the longer and longer you went a game, it got so much worse. It was his competitiveness fell so much the longer he went into the games. It got horrible. It was like, it got to the point not even where he was just like not doing anything on, running plays that were going to the opposite side. It was when passing plays were going to the other side, he just stopped running routes. He didn't do that the whole game. He ran his routes in the first quarter, but when we got to the third quarter, he wasn't running his routes. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I will say, but like I will reiterate though about how special of an athlete this guy is. I mentioned, some of that AD Mitchell, like big, I can't believe had like the agility, flexibility, he has a little bit for lane, but I said it wasn't quite to like what AD Mitchell had. Brazzell's there. Brazzell has exceptional hit receiver his side. He is very, very good change of direction ability. One of the best in this class, despite being 6'5". It's amazing to watch. He, for as frustrating as this guy is to watch, he is also a very, very fun watch because it just amazes you the type of athlete he is at times. He possesses that, true vertical speeds, distress safeties, his body control is phenomenal. He's strong and physical after the catch. He just imposes when he decides to block, he just absolutely imposes himself in blocking situations. Very good at working the blind spot in defensive backs. His ability to locate the ball early and elevate to the high point. Just really, really a lot of exciting upside from Chris Brazzell. But as you mentioned, it's just the competitiveness not there. And, I will say, like, yes, he doesn't quite have the lack of route running some other Tennessee guys, but at the end of the day, he is relying on a set, like, few routes. That's just that offense. And, although I think he could do more, you don't really get to see it. So, he's an interesting prospect. He's going to catch the attention of NFL teams. It depends where I could get him. I would take a swing on him in the right spot, not day 2.
Yeah, I can't. I understand people like him, and I understand the gifted, stuff physically and athletically. I'm going to be honest. This is off my board. I'm not touching him. No, I can't. I can't draft a guy who's going to quit on the game. Because if you can quit on your team the way blatantly quit multiple games we watched, where he would just give up, not even try for like long stretches of the game. I can't say that's not coaching, in my opinion. That's a trait. It's a bad trait. And he's going to have some answering to do because coaches are going to see this. They're going to be, and GMs are going to see this. They're going to say, what's up with this? And he's going to have to answer those questions. And maybe he hates Tennessee and he won't do it in the NFL, but you can't unsee that stuff. And personally, I'm not spending big premium draft capital on this guy. I'm willing to miss on the elite upside to avoid the catastrophic no floor situation with this guy.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm with that with a lot of where I feel if a guy's kind of an outlier, I'm okay with missing him. And I feel like his effort kind of makes him an outlier to succeed at the next level. Granted, we'll see what coach we hire. Maybe I'll change my opinion if I feel like you get a Mike Tomlin in here.
If you hire Mike Tomlin, he's perfect, and draft him. Right? It's fine. He is George Pickens. He is Deontay Johnson. He's all of those guys, right? Like he's the next prototype like that.
But with the wrong coach, he might not make it to week 6.
Yeah, the Giants have a lot of problems. Combination of some depth issues, coaching issues, guys maybe not giving full effort. There's a lot wrong with this team that needs to be corrected. Now, I think coaching does fix a lot of it, but I'm personally not bringing in dudes like this when I'm trying to fix it. I need to get guys who are, I'm not just drafting high effort character guys and captains. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's certain guys who I would avoid with premium capital. You tell me this guy's falling into day 3, let's talk, right? Can't do I'll take a swing.
That's what day 3 picks are for, in my opinion. It's for high upside swings.
Take the upside guy. Am I taking this guy at pick 34, 35? No. Somebody, if that's where he goes, that's where he goes. I'm okay with not being that guy. That's my personal opinion. I just can't unsee the stuff that I saw. Let's grade him though.
He's going to grade well.
He's going to grade well because he's elite athletically. So agility, 4. Body control, you give him a 5. I gave him a 4, but I could have given him a 5 here. Good. Yeah, hands, 3. Could have given him a 4 here, honestly. Sometimes he has concentration issues. Play strength, 3. Could be a 4. Some of this is effort, to be totally frank. Focus ball tracking, you gave him a 4. I gave him a 3. Long speed, we both gave him a 4. We could have given him 5s here because he's fast. Route running, we both give him a 2. I don't think he has, this big time route running ability.
No, he has the athleticism to do it, but it's not there.
That's not his fault. I think that's Tennessee.
No, which is another worry. Aside from the effort, is Tennessee's offense.
Right. Who has translated from Tennessee? Jabri's gonna say Cedric Tillman. I'm not gonna listen to that shit. Release package, 2. Yak ability, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 2. I graded him more harshly than you did.
Yeah, you didn't like him. You were really mad at him.
Graded out just above a 3 for us. I think above average overall, but some of the traits are elite. You can't deny the elite traits. It just comes down to what you value. If you're like, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff, I'll coach him up. He's an elite athlete, an explosive athlete. All that is true, and you can do it. I'm just saying, philosophically, not for me. That's all.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I'm completely with you, but I do think same grade as Jacoby Lane for me. And I think Jacoby Lane is more nuanced, but I think Brazzell's the better athlete.
You can't teach 6'5", 200 and something pounds with that speed control and strength. You can't teach the stuff he has. The question is, can you unteach the bad stuff? And that's that's up to a GM, right? GM coaches got to figure that out. If they think they can harness it, go for it. But right now, I don't know. All right. Why don't you want to go over number 5 together? You want to do this? Why don't you start it and we'll go over him? Because we don't have a ton of film. We got what we could on him, but it's worth talking about him because he is a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award. So let's go over him.
Yeah. And this is a guy we'll have to bring back up. Hopefully, we can go over him when we do Bryce Lance in the future, hopefully, because we'll actually get tape. Another guy we don't have tape on, but somebody you wanted me to look at and for us to talk about, and I watched him, and I'm glad you did. And that's Skyler Bell from UConn. He's not a guy we even graded because we mostly just got to watch highlights, but he's exciting. 6 foot, 185. It's an interesting frame. You see a lot of the wide receivers in today's league kind of have that frame. That reminds me of the Olaves, the Stephon Diggs, the Garrett Wilsons. You see a lot of guys in that mold, and I honestly think he can play like them at times. So what I had for his pros is I said he maintains focus and tight coverage or off-target throws, tracking the football to the point of contact. He really just catches balls outside of his frame, really has good body control, good focus. I said after exhibits exceptional body control, just smoothly as to passes and flights or while contested. Maintains balance and power through contact while eluding defenders in space. This is a guy who's really good after the catch. Some things that reminded me of a little bit at times after the catch was, I'm not comparing them, but made me think of it was back when we had Odell, where he had that thing where he'd have his back to the defender. He'd jab step one side, roll the other way to the sideline and just take off upfield. I used to see Odell do that all the time. And I know that was fun to watch. He uses lower body explosiveness, core strength, and hip flexibility to change direction. And he makes tough catches look easy. He snatches the ball out of the air effortlessly. He's just a guy who really got to watch and break down the negatives of him. But the positive upside of him fits the modern day NFL.
Yeah, I think we just have to watch more. But what I saw, I liked. The issue is going to be, he's doing this at UConn, and he's doing this sort of, a little later in his career here. He's in his 5th year. He spent 3 years at Wisconsin, where he was not very productive, to be totally frank. Now that's Wisconsin, right? That's an embarrassingly unimaginative offense in Wisconsin. But he goes to UConn, he becomes productive against, worse competition. Although he produced against some decent teams, like some Big Ten teams and some ACC teams. I just, I don't know. I think this is a guy, he's a Biletnikoff finalist because he's highly productive. He has 1,282 yards and 102 receptions. He has 13 touchdowns. He's got 3.15 yards per route run. He's 60-something percentage in, contested catches. He's very productive. So he's a finalist for Biletnikoff. He's obviously not going to win the Biletnikoff, but, just the fact that he's there and the committee felt that he deserved to be there says something about how he's viewed. And I think he's a guy to watch. Again, probably a day 3 guy, based on being in a small school. But if you want to pick up a day 3 receiver who has some really good tape, I think he's a guy I would take a swing on. Would I be shocked if somebody on day 2 took him? No. And we saw guys we saw Sky Moore go in the second round, Mm-hmm. Who's not good. But still, guys get taken from small schools if people want to bet on them. But I think he's a guy worth watching. He doesn't get a lot of run. I mean, there's some guys who come from these smaller programs we watch. I mean, remember in the cornerback episode, we went over Chris Johnson a little bit from mm-hmm. San Diego State, who I think is an outstanding corner and probably he might be the best pure cover corner in this class outside like the top 2 or 3 guys. So, sometimes I think it just translates. I'm not sure with the stage, but he's intriguing. I'll put it that way. And he's worth reviewing. I want more tape on him. Mm-hmm. And the guy we didn't get to, which we got booed for and got called frauds for, is definitely Trey Lance's younger brother. And we have to get to him. But again, until we have tape, it's hard to know what you're looking at sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're watching highlights, you don't necessarily get a great feel for some of this stuff. Like for example, if you just saw Chris Brazzell's highlights, he'd be almost like wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Right. You got to watch the rest of it. And you're like, what the hell is this? So I just want to reserve judgment on some of these guys until I get full tape. But I like what I see so far from Skyler Bell.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to try to get too ahead of myself here, but I did love what I saw. The production looks great here. I mean, 3.15 yards per route run is an elite number. Only a 3.8% drop rate. Contested catch rate of 63.2. Great. Grade versus man coverage 82.5. This guy, he was using a lot of screen plays this year in that UConn offense, and they had him work after the catch, but really, really just impressive player. And I watched him, and we'll take a look at him in the future, and just a guy for all of you guys to keep an eye on as well.
I think that's our episode in terms of reviewing these prospects. So that's our wide receivers. We've gone through a bunch of them. What do we have left? I think we have QBs and D-line left, and that's it.
Yep.
Right. So we'll get to those in the coming weeks, hopefully, and get this done with.
We'll have to keep in mind the season coming to an end and what we want to get in. As far as potential coaching candidates, a lot of people are requesting nepotism part 2. We can discuss that, but
and we could even push the final prospect reviews till January if it that's fine. I think we've got plenty of time to finish that up and get into the pre-draft process during the playoffs and stuff. One of them is quarterback. Who gives a shit, right? We don't need a quarterback because Alex told us to draft Jaxson Dart, and that's what we did. And we're fine. Shout out, Alex. But no, we're good on quarterback. Oh, I got to talk about this. Who was it? Was it Dunleavy who said, if the Giants have the number 1 overall pick, should they consider drafting Fernando Mendoza?
And then Art jumped into it today.
Yeah, no. The answer is no. Fuck no. Fuck no.
It's not even worth discussing. It's so fucking silly. And I was reading Art's article. I didn't get into Dunleavy's. I kind of just ignored it, but I read Art's today, and it's just blatant fear mongering to try to justify keeping Joe Shane. It's basically oh, you guys like Jaxson Dart. Well, if you get rid of Joe Shane, Jaxson Dart might not be here. No, shut the fuck up. It's maybe in the future, if Jaxson Dart struggles, there's less of an attachment. That is fair. This doesn't happen. You do not move on from a first-round quarterback a year later. It has happened twice in the modern draft history. One time was Kyler Murray and Josh Rosen. A weird situation where Josh Rosen was horrific his rookie year, and you brought in a head coach who literally recruited Kyler Murray to Texas A&M. So it was a weird situation. And then the other situation being a generational quarterback in John Elway, who didn't even stay on the Colts. They ended up trading him to the Broncos, but those are the only situations in modern draft day history of this happen. It's not going to happen with how well Jaxson Dart's playing. It's just a silly thing to talk about.
How do you know when you have a franchise quarterback? You should know it when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
You have one. Until proven otherwise, Jaxson Dart is a franchise quarterback. We all know it. We're seeing, like, are you telling me that we haven't been gaslighting ourselves here? The kid is the goods, right? I mean, I don't think most people thought he'd be this incredibly good his first year, but he is. So just accept it. For once, a good thing happened to us. Run with it, right? So no, we're not taking freaking Fernando Mendoza. If we somehow landed the first overall pick, and we can debate all we want what that freaking pick is worth, but I am collecting picks. And from somebody else who wants Mendoza, and I'm moving down, and I'm loading up this team with talent for Jaxson Dart so he can go win a Super Bowl. That's what I'm doing.
I agree. They just need to try to get as much assets as they can. And
we have an important question from Jabri, who in the previous, I'm not going to read his previous comment where he called you a terrorist from West Virginia and just derogatorily named me an Indian man. That's his way of being really angry. But if the Titans get the first pick, hey, Monty, should they consider Dante Moore? Yeah. Actually, yeah.
No.
The Titans are not going to do that. The Giants are not going to do that. They're going to at least ride this out for one draft.
And to be fair, what Jabri just said, like the fact that he brought up Dante Moore, like that's his quarterback class. Like it's not a two-man like awesome head race between Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. The idea is we don't have a bona fide quarterback. It's probably Fernando Mendoza. We don't know that. It could be Ty Simpson. Like it still could be him. Like who knows?
Ty Simpson. Definitely not Ty Simpson.
Hell, he was number 3 on Brugler's big board like a month ago.
And now Brugler is saying he should go back to college. He's so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I'm not getting rid of my franchise quarterback for this freaking class. Hell no. Absolutely not. So anyway, this week we have an important game to watch. There's one college football game, Army Navy, 3:00. Yep. Have fun watching that. There are no football games otherwise on Saturday, so go do something more productive with your lives. Lots of NFL football on Thursday and Sunday and Monday. The Giants game is a 4:30 game. No, actually, this game is a 1:00 game. Right? We're playing.
I believe so.
We're playing the Commanders, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it should be a 1:00 game. It's an ass off. Both teams are shitty. We're playing. The unfortunate part for the Commanders is they are playing their best quarterback in Marcus Mariota in this game against us, so they have a better chance to beat us. That's how it is. But we'll see how this goes. I don't think anybody really expects these guys to not win a game and lose out and hold up to the number 1 pick. I'd be surprised if they did that, but you never know. They've been pretty crappy all year. Guys are getting shut down. By the way, Kayvon Thibodeau again on the did not participate in practice report today. That is 4 consecutive weeks. That's actually 5 weeks in a row. He has missed 3 games, then the bye week. Now he's not participating in practice on Wednesday, despite the bye. I mean, that doesn't portend well for him playing on Sunday.
No.
If we're at 5 weeks, number one, why don't you just put him on IR? Mm-hmm. And at this point, just shut him down. Yeah. Like there's just, if he's that hurt that he's missing that much time, just shut him down. And Dex, shut him down. I would like to see them not try to win these games. I don't give a shit. Like they lost pride a long time ago. People who think that, I get Dart wanting to win. I understand that. I won't be upset if he wins a game for himself, but like the team and the organization at some point, it's like you're 2-11. Can we not get these guys any more hurt than they already are? Just shut them down. They're not even helping us at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting end of the season. I don't expect us to hold on to the first pick. I don't want to be Grinch here, but we have a very easy schedule, and that's what the Giants do every year. I'm not getting my hopes up, but we'll see, man. We'll see.
One thing I can be sure of is that if the Commanders do lose to us, they're going to fuck up the pick again. That's what they'll do. They took Chase Young the first time. They took Jaden Daniels the next time. So they keep messing it up. I'm going to keep saying that. So I should have taken Drake Man, guys. Anyway, that's an episode. We'll come back next week, I believe. I think I'm still here, right? Yeah, I'm still here before I head off to a vacation. So we'll go over one of these position groups unless we come up with something else that you guys want to go over, like nepotism, or if any breaking news happens that we got to discuss. Until then, remember to like and subscribe the episode. Follow us at He's a Giant Pod. Follow me at Queens_Guy. Follow Monty at MONTECRI5TO. Got any closing comments, Monty?
No. Clean house. That's my closing comments.
They're gonna clean house. They're gonna clean house,
including Chris Mara.
You want to clean Chris Mara out of the house?
Yep.
He might be the guy cleaning house. So let's just see. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Have a great time, and go Giants.
Go Giants.
Go Giants loss, I guess. So do something.